Well, thank you for joining us on this lovely evening, a bit cold and windy here in London, but I have just watched Deliver Me From Nowhere about Bruce Springsteen. Now, I am of the age where I grew up with Bruce. He's not too far from my neck of the woods. I mean, I grew up in Michigan, he grew up in New York, so we're both kind of in the same neighborhood. And I'm delighted to welcome Dr. Catherine O'Connell, who's going to tell us all about herself and about the great work that she does with Saturn returns, if I'm not mistaken.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for inviting me. It's delightful. And
And
I
you saw
want you
the
to know
film?
that,
You saw
yeah,
the film too.
I did. First of all, I want to say thanks for inviting me. I've been really enjoying your show. I've been following it.
Thank you. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
it's great. It really is wonderful. Yes, I saw the movie. Mind you, I live in a very rural area, so there was one place to see it, and I was just hoping that it would be here, and it was. And I loved it.
I
I
got up
loved the
early
movie.
yesterday morning and I
Yeah.
wanted to be one of the first people in the world to watch this part.
Yeah. And, I think we'll get into Saturn. You're right. I do a lot of work with Saturn returns, particularly the second and third. People very rarely talk about the third return, but I'm actually doing research on that.
Well, I'm in the middle of my second Saturn return, and I would love to give you some more info about that, but I've had a good one because I've understood my first one. And that I think it's really important to get into the cycle of the Saturn returns and how they work in life. But we can get to that in a minute. But I got up, I played hooky from school yesterday because I'm a school teacher. And I didn't go into work yesterday because I wanted to watch this film. And like many other biopics, I am so interested in how the actor steps into this role. So
Yes,
my first question for you is, did you enjoy the film?
I loved the film. I loved it. And I really like Jeremy. I follow him in The Bear too. I really like that show as well. And I think they have a lot in common. I'm sure we'll get into that. Right?
We sure will. We will talk all about it. Now, what I thought, now, bearing in mind, I love a good biopic. I am so into biopics. I've written Mirror Mirror, which is about the astrology of famous people and the actors who portrayed them. I'm working on volume two. But one thing that I loved about Jeremy's portrayal is he has Bruce's little quirks down to an art form. There was a way that he was standing. Now we all know the album cover. I think now Bruce has got such a big collection of stuff that he's done, but it's the one where his I'm sorry, there's no polite way to say this. It's his the butt and the
Yeah.
bandana sticking out of the back pocket. And
Yeah.
there's just the way that Jeremy was standing that I just thought pure Bruce. And Bruce Springsteen to me also has that real passionate delivery. It's all about the throat. He's shouting. I
Yeah.
like Bob Dylan. I don't think Bruce is a great singer, but it's his delivery that matters. With Bob Dylan, it's about his poetry, but with Bruce, it's his delivery. And that is there is something about him that really, I think, um, brings that passion that I love so much. And my favorite Bruce song is "Glory Days" about baseball. Do you have a favorite Bruce song?
Yes, I'm on fire.
Oh, God, yes, yes, of course, that's a great one too.
It
Yes,
speaks directly to my Aries moon. It like switches it on.
perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. So I think there's something about the synastry. If you, I always tell people this, if you are a particular fan of somebody, look at the synastry. And so without further ado, let's look at the synastry of Bruce Springsteen. Let's look at his chart first of all, and then we can fit our synastry in a minute. So here he is. Here's our Bruce. His birth chart. We got a timed birth chart, 10:50 p.m., Freehold, New Jersey. And we get a sense of his history from his birth chart. I found it absolutely fascinating that he had honed in on the Starkweather homicides. He would have been about 10 when they took place. And
Yeah.
his whole entire Nebraska song is about this. And one thing I keep saying one thing, things that stick out with me is that he changed his lyrics from third person to first person. He put himself in the eyes of the killer, which I found fascinating. But, here he is. We got this hardworking Jupiter and Capricorn. Now, because I'm a teacher, I'm always looking at Jupiter signs. I've always found that Jupiter and Capricorn students will do what you ask them to do, and they want to do a good job, but they really need to be coaxed into searching and reaching beyond expectations. And I think this comes through with Bruce, with his generation that he grew up in. He was blue collar boy all the way. And it was fascinating to me that he has Saturn in Virgo. He wanted to get that voice down perfectly. I I I felt a little bit in this film that they spent too much time with him trying to get that perfection. But then when I looked at his chart, I thought, yeah, well, that's what it's about. It's his Saturn in Virgo that's coming through.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that I think it's fascinating you pointed out about the first person. 'Cause you know who that reminds me of? You know who does that a lot? That's poetry too? Thich Nhat Hanh.
Okay.
You know Thich Nhat Hanh, the Buddhist monk?
Yes, he says happy teachers make a happy world.
That's right. If you look back at his background, it was just grisly. He came, of age in Cambodia right when all the violence was happening, and his poetry is from the point of view of the victim, always, and the perpetrator. So he speaks for both. So he puts himself into the consciousness of the perpetrator,
Mm.
so that he understands so he has the depth of the compassion, actually taking the risk of putting himself in that point of view. Huge compassion. That's about as deep as it gets, right?
Well, and just looking at passion, um, I know you're talking about compassion, but passion with Bruce's chart, Mars conjunct Pluto.
Yes,
You know, this,
exactly.
you know,
Yeah,
this guy dies on stage, right? For us
yeah,
to see, for us to
yeah,
understand.
yeah,
And watching Jeremy's portrayal, that whole entire thing that he does with I don't know, you just get the feeling that it's coming from the very depth of his soul when he sings. And
yeah,
I've always felt this way about Bruce. And I think it's very interesting that Jeremy was able to pull that out.
yeah,
But
yeah.
look at those Libra planets too.
Yes,
I
yes.
was surprised that the movie didn't go into his first marriage with Julianne Phillips or his later marriage with Patty Scaglia, is it?
Hmm. Hmm.
That they didn't go into those relationships, but they did focus on the relationship with his first relationship before he got married. Interesting stuff. I thought it meant so much to Bruce. I think in this film, in the character of Bruce, to talk about what this relationship meant. He wasn't like passing through relationships. There was depth and an
Yeah.
understanding of being with another person and the responsibility of being a stepfather with somebody else.
And it's interesting that he chose a woman with a child who was about the age he was when he went through a lot of heavy trauma with his dad.
Uh, uh, that whole entire thing about his dad
Hmm.
um, was extremely important and interesting. And
Yeah.
maybe you want to speak to that Saturn.
Yeah. Well, and I think that the being with a woman who had a child who was about his age when he went through a lot of trauma, that can bring up a lot of memory that's blocked. And I think it did. I suspect that it really kicked up a lot of dust, so to speak. But I'm a clinical psychologist as well as astrologer, so I do look at that as well. So I think it's pretty important. As far as the Saturn and Virgo is concerned, guess who else has a Saturn and Virgo? I was born just a few months after him. I was born just like 5 months after him. So I'm in the same sort of, you know, season, if you will. And so I could really understand, particularly a Saturn and Virgo. Do you know that he worked himself? to the point where he couldn't work anymore. He literally collapsed on stage with his peptic ulcer more than once. He had to
Uh,
be sent home from a world tour because he literally collapsed. He worked till it collapsed. I've done that. Saturn and Virgo, man, we work hard. The other thing is that Saturn and Virgo really needs Earth. You know how it's really he didn't want to live in New York City. He didn't really want to go and he wanted to be in Jersey. He's back there now, I believe. His home is in Jersey, isn't it? And not far from where he grew up. So Saturn and Virgo really has to have contact with Earth in some way. Like I garden, he needs to be near. I live in California, but I'm a native New Englander. I love New England, particularly this time of year. I really miss New England with the fall leaves and everything. You're a Midwestern. I'm sure you can understand. And so there's that connection with Earth. This that's so important. Or we get really a little crazy. And I think the guitar is an Earth connection. It's wood, right? And he discovered the guitar because his mom gave him a guitar at the worst period in his life with his dad, around the age that the girl was, that the woman he was dating, about 7, 8. His mom gave him a guitar around that age.
at the
So
age
it
of seven,
grounded
are you
him.
saying?
Mhm.
Because seven is important Saturn age because that's the first transiting Saturn square. Because
Exactly.
I don't know if you know about my work, but I look at how we build on Saturn and Jupiter squares throughout our lives. So sevens are important in our development. Um, that's very interesting. Now, talking about now, let's think about what a guitar is. Okay, first of all, it's it's using the right and left hand together, right?
Yeah.
You
Yes.
have to be
Yeah.
dexterous to play the guitar. You also, I have never understood how guitar players tune their instruments. Now, I'm a trumpet player, and that's different. I got a really good sense of tone for one single note. But you get me into watching guitar players tune, I don't know how they do that. And that fascinates me. So guitar playing it's very fascinating.
It is very fascinating. So at 7, a lot happened. But you and I have a lot in common in that we're interested in those sevens, the squares and the oppositions as well. And at 7, he was taken from public school and put in Catholic school. Do you know what? The same thing happened to me. He hated Catholic school at first, but then he discovered they had a choir. That's when he discovered singing. And his parents let him stay up late one night and watched Ed Sullivan. That's when he saw Elvis singing "You Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog," and he recognized something. You know how kids can recognize something important at an early age, especially 7. You and I know that, right? Especially 7. What did they, in the Catholic Church, they always said it was the age of reason, a very important, they always said a
Mm.
very important age. So he and I both like Gregorian chant to this day. Do you know that I saw him play when I was a teenager?
No, you didn't tell me that.
Because I moved from Massachusetts to Westchester, New York when I was about 11, right? And I went into the city a lot, and then I ended up living in Greenwich Village. I was at the Cafe Wa and the Kettle of Fish and all those Bleecker Street haunts and the West Village, the East Village. That was my stuff. For a while, Jimi Hendrix was a neighbor. Bob Dylan was a neighbor before they went electric. Like 1963. I was supposed to be in school. You said introduce myself, so I
No,
decided to
please.
do it in a way that's not boring. Sure, I'm a clinical psychologist. Sure, I've been an astrologer for 63 years. Sure, I met Dane Rudger, but this stuff is really synchronicity. You want synchronicity? I was at those same haunts. I hung around. I wish I had musical talent like you guys. I don't. I did bookings for musicians for a little while in New York, though, right? But so I really admire musical talent because I ain't got it, right?
Well, I admire Bruce's musicality, but I'm gonna come back to this. I don't think he has a I think he sings a little flat a lot. I
Yeah.
think he shouts into the microphone, and I don't think he has a great voice, except that it's loud and it's passionate. And I'm going to come back to Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan, he's got Saturn in Taurus,
Yes.
They have the way of making something from nothing and turning into a way of making money. He can't sing. What? But he's made something. He's made a fortune out of that. He's also an artist now. Um, somebody who again can't draw, but he's made the
Yeah.
most out of it. The way Saturn has this tendency to, if you focus on it and you work it, it's going to be successful. Saturn and Virgo, a man who is, according to this film, somebody who struggled with depression. You know,
Yes.
I'm glad that we are acknowledging and talking about mental health. And I think that anybody who has to perform again and again and again, I think it's hard to be on stage. I think
Yes.
that is a challenge, and we don't really appreciate it. I see this with Amy Winehouse. That
Yes.
that woman had so much talent, and to be
Yes.
on stage again and again. Janis Joplin, another one.
Yeah.
Every night I make
Yeah.
love to 10,000 people, but I go
Yeah.
home alone, is what Janis Joplin said.
Well, remember Liz Taylor? She used to say, I hate being in public. She was a Pisces. I've got Pisces rising, you know, I
Mm.
get it, there's a monastic part of this. There's that monastic part, where like really a lot of people with strong Pisces, happy being alone, and particularly with the ones that have a spiritual connection, who have gone the spiritual route. The monastic. I lived like a monk. I was so deeply involved in Tibetan Buddhism for so many years that I lived in the world, but like a monk for many years.
I don't know Liz Taylor's chart very well off the top of my head, but I do recall that she's a Pisces.
Yeah.
And what we know about her publicly, I'm always very careful about I don't want to project problems onto people, but we know her struggles with addiction.
Yes.
And I just think that when you get famous people like Bruce, Liz Taylor, you have to think about what they do to cope with the fame. They
Yes.
couldn't go outside their house to buy a pint of milk like you and I can do. No one's going to notice me when I go outside.
Yeah.
At least I hope not. No way I go outside. But anyways, anything that captures your attention about Bruce's chart before we move on to the synastry.
Well, that just the amazing, stellium in Libra, going depending upon what house system you use for the fourth or the fifth house, and just the talent of that, and the need to express it, the talent, and the need to be heard, and the musicality. Critics' favorite album of his and mine, and Bob Dylan's favorite album of his is Nebraska. And it came out of that first Saturn return, which, as you and I know, is an initiation into adulthood, among other things, right? So, and guess how old Jeremy is? He's 34, right? He got sober 4 years ago, right about the same time Bruce went through a lot of his stuff. So they're going through the same stuff at the same age, that critical first Saturn return time. And Bruce, although he did drink, he stopped now, but he didn't want to do drugs and he didn't want to get in trouble with alcohol like his dad did. But he did still drink socially, and now he's open about saying, I've stopped all of it because I know with an ulcer, I shouldn't even be doing social drinking. And so he dealt with a lot of this differently and maybe earlier. So because he wasn't drinking heavily or using drugs, Bruce, for his first Saturn return, he had to face himself, right? So what did he do? He moved back into his childhood home. That bedroom with the orange shag carpeting he describes in his writings about his life. He's very open about all this. He said, I still remember that orange shag carpeting. And when I moved back into the family home, that carpeting was still there. So he recorded Nebraska with that carpeting, with a boombox, and with that carpeting. No wonder they had such trouble with the sound on the album, right?
That was interesting. I love that. I love that little detail about with the sound. He wanted to be in his bedroom. Talk about fourth house, wanted to be
Yeah,
home,
yeah. He
and
wanted to be home.
where you sleep.
And look at that lineup of planets in the fourth house.
I know, yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
And let's hear it from Mercury retrograde.
Yeah. I mean, he's got Uranus, rising there and in Cancer, which sort of shakes things up. And at the same time, he's got the fourth house full of like, I want to be home and I want to shake things up at the same time. And I want to bring out the shadow side of thing, Venus and Scorpio. And the fifth, the shadow side of his parents' relationship, you know.
You know who else had Uranus rising in Cancer, I think, the same year is Karen Carpenter. Uh,
Really?
she had it bang on her ascendant, and she
Wow.
had a very unusual relationship with her mother, and of course the brother Richard. That was a kind of unusual relationship, and her whole entire story about finding her way home. She, chick drummer. Who on earth can sing and play the drums at the same time?
Really?
Who else?
Right.
Yeah, but
Right.
Karen Carpenter could sing extremely well and was a very highly accomplished drummer. And then I think about this with Bruce too. Okay, I'm going to be a little bit critical of his singing, but I can't fault his guitar playing. I can't fault his sense of rhythm either. It's I love the way it came out in this film. And there were maybe it's to do with the genre of biopics. I just felt it almost fell into mimicry, but maybe that's not a bad thing. So let's look at the bi-wheel of Bruce and Jeremy Allen White. So
Yeah.
just for people, so we can find our way into the charts. I got Bruce in the middle. Now remember we were talking about Uranus rising in Bruce's chart. So just to help people find their way around it, this is Bruce's chart here, and this is Jeremy's chart. Now I got to point out it's a noon chart. We don't know the time, and drives me crazy. But I don't think we can throw the baby out with the bathwater, as Johannes Kepler might have said. We could still use this chart to find meaning
Yeah.
in it.
Do you want to guess on an ascendant?
I I don't want to guess on the ascendant because I am too caught up in looking at the moon, his sun,
Yeah.
excuse me, his
Yeah.
sun on Bruce Springsteen's Midheaven. Talk about bringing, highlighting your career. I mean, I what I find so fascinating about biopics is, you know, if you want to be critical of astrology, fine, but look at how people tap into the characters they're going to play. And you just cannot make this stuff up. I had Philip Daniel Miles last week talking about Man in the Moon with um, Andy Kaufman and uh, oh Jim Carrey and their lunar connections. You just cannot make this stuff up. Elton John and Taron Egerton, Sun Moon conjunction. You know, I found that there's always something to do with the nodes to do with these, and we'll see the transits for this movie in a minute. But I think this is fascinating. Look at that North Node. Look at Jeremy's North Node, 4 degrees away from that Jupiter in Capricorn of Bruce Springsteen.
Isn't
What's
that
he
something?
what's he tapping into? He's
Yeah.
tapping into his blue collar work ethic. Bruce never
Yes.
wears a suit. He wears flannel
Yes.
shirts and blue jeans and trainers and tennis shoes on stage. He has never, to my mind, ever dressed up or tried to be somebody other than the real Bruce Springsteen, the boss.
Yeah. I don't know about you, but I grew up with folk music. And I saw, Pete Seeger, the Weavers, Joan Baez, because I was in New York. I saw a lot of them live, either down in the Village or at Carnegie Hall, or at the park, the free concerts at the park,
I
Central
once
Park.
saw Stevie Wonder in a lift
Yeah, yeah.
because I'm from
So,
Motown, right?
I grew up with folk music and I got Saturn and Virgo. I had the same I've always been in love with acoustic guitar. It always comes back to leave out the loud stuff. So I just love Nebraska. I just love that album. And I understand why he had this conflict, which came out at his first Saturn return, Bruce, about authenticity. No, no, I'm a guy with a chambray shirt and jeans on and an acoustic guitar. That's who I am deep inside. And I'm not going to pretend I'm something else. Yes, I'm a rocker, but I'm not going to diss this other part. I must have this other part to be fully me and to be everything else too. I must have, because this is my connection with the earth, Saturn and Virgo. And it's not a compromise. I can't compromise it. And his producer was Bob, bless his heart, stuck with him. He didn't betray him. That's so unusual. And
Well,
they went and
yeah.
found old equipment to record it on. I love that. Isn't that wonderful? The producer found old-fashioned equipment to record the sound on so it would sound authentic and it wouldn't be messed up by the stuff that was just too highfalutin for that sound.
Yeah, so
Isn't that
just
great?
yes, it is. So sorry, just so people know, it's a scene in the film where Bruce is recording in his bedroom and he likes the sound. He's got the echo just the way he wants it. But the equipment that they have um, tried to make it more um, high resolution. I think it might be the word than Bruce wanted.
Yeah.
And there was like, it's a whole entire big part of the movie is that Bruce wanted to be authentic and he didn't want to go back to he didn't want to modernize. And I think that's really very a potent thing to say about Jupiter and Capricorn is
Yeah.
we want to keep it real. We want to
Yeah.
keep it authentic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Saturn in Virgo too wants to be uh
Earthy.
natural, I
Yeah.
think is the word we're
Natural.
searching for.
Natural. Yeah, that's great. And I think Bruce and I can only imagine, who knows, I'm not Bruce, but just I can only imagine that Bruce, he's just come out of his third Saturn opposition. I know because I just came out of my third Saturn opposition. Saturn in Pisces, the third opposition
Okay,
when
so
it's in Pisces the third time. So he's
let's
just
look
came out of that, right? And that's when he collapsed on the stage
so
in
let's
on his world tour. And
let's help
he
our
had to go home. He was sent home. He had to collapse to be sent home. That's Saturn and so so at any rate, and Bruce looking at Jeremy, who's so much in some ways like he was at his first Saturn return. Jeremy, this is all public. Jeremy got sober 4 years ago because when he's interviewed, he said he had to, or he was going to destroy everything that he built. And both of them have another thing in common. They got famous early. They got famous in their 20s. They hit the in some ways, a peak in their career in their 20s. Bruce was already famous. He'd already written songs that the Pointer Sisters and a lot of other famous people had recorded by his late 20s. And Jeremy was a child star in Shameless for 10 years. He said he was grateful for that because it kept him, he said, stable. That was his word, stable. And then he came into the Bear in 2022. And now this, and 4 years ago, so somewhere between when Shameless ended, that kept him stable, and the Bear, he something happened where he realized that he had to get sober and stay sober. So he's got 4 years of sobriety. And Bruce, of course, in his first Saturn return, realized that alcohol wasn't going to be the answer for him. It was, it didn't help his dad. And he looked around and he was smart enough to see drugs weren't going to be the answer either. So he kind of, looking at Jeremy, must be kind of like, in some ways, looking back at himself. And Jeremy got help, 4 years ago. He got sober early. It's not easy to be at a peak in the career in the 20s. I was a consultant to a president of the United States in my 20s, Carter, you know, on policy, healthcare policy, in my mid 20s. And it is not easy because you think, what's next? Where do you go? It's weird in a way, although it's a gift too, right? You have to come to terms with it. And then after it's over, like after Shameless was over, but before the bear came in, he's going, what's next? I can just see it. And then realize alcohol isn't the answer. I don't know what happened, but thank goodness something did. alcohol's not the answer, and he got into recovery.
I think with famous people, I mean, because you hit the high points, you can't sustain the high points. You're going to have to hit the troughs as well. And I think that's what famous people struggle with. There was an actress, goodness me, she was in Hairspray, but she was a child, famous as a child. Oh, name's on the tip of my tongue. I'll think about it in a second. But she was in Hairspray, and she had to go through these very difficult drops, um, but yet she was still on the stage.
Yes.
So everybody saw her faults. Oh, her name's on the tip of my tongue. I just can't think of it. Um,
Yeah.
I'm sure some
I've
viewer
treated
will
a lot
tell
of
me.
addiction. Yeah, I've treated a lot of addiction and alcoholism, and my first two books were about that subject. And I've been around it a lot, and I myself stopped drinking 43 years ago. Great decision, wonderful decision. I have it in my family. Why repeat it? You don't
Yeah.
have to. You could stop before you have a problem. That's what I did. But they call it
Me
early
too.
stage, right?
Me too. I'm First Nation, so it runs in my family too, and I had to get a grip on it. And but what I think, well, my research says is that a lot of people take up drinking, or a bad habit, when they're going through all the neurological changes in adolescence, which is where my research comes in, looking at the importance of this brain development in adolescence, and how I always say the habits of a lifetime are formed in adolescence. Whatever your poison is, you need to often go back and revisit yourself as a teenager and get to grips with it.
Yeah. This is kind of this is a little bit dark, in recovery there are a lot of dark jokes, right? So here's one. Um, which is harder for an alcoholic, success or failure? What do you think?
And oh no, I'm going to say I think success. People
Yeah.
have a lot
It's
of
down, hands
difficulty
down.
dealing with success. And I've had I mean, thank God I'm not famous, right? Because I have enough trouble dealing with success kind of at a local level, let alone on the stage level, where like Bruce Springsteen. And I think one of the things that keeps me grounded is reminding myself, for God's sake, Alex, you might have written 3 books, but that doesn't make you Stephen King, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
calm
Yeah.
down,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
keep your wits about yourselves. But that is a luxury that Bruce, Bob Dylan, you name it, that they don't have. And anyway, let's look at the transits for yesterday. Now, as I said, I am so happy that I took the day off of work yesterday and got to see this film. I got to be one of the first people in the world to see the film. Yay! 11 o'clock British
Oh.
time. I always use the noon time though for the release of charts, cautiously looking. We can't look at the moon, we can't look at angles, but we can look and where other things drop. And good God, look at where Pluto was yesterday.
And where the moon was, huh?
Uh, well, we can't look at the moon too much, but look at Pluto on Jeremy Allen White's Saturn in Aquarius. This, okay, now he had some moderate success and not such a big name over here in England, but I think this movie is really going to be his, you know, he got it going on in that film. And that he was channeling Bruce with his son on Bruce's midheaven. But we can also look at Saturn and Venus. You know, um, it's just so much going on. And oh, and I didn't mention, just coming over here to uh, Jeremy's Chiron is opposite to Bruce's Jupiter in
Yes,
Capricorn.
I noticed that. Isn't that wonderful? And that underscores the comments we were just making about, Bruce looking back now to that part of his life and Jeremy being in that part, just having completed his first Saturn return. That must have been profoundly healing for them both.
I think so. And I think that's what really makes, again, um, you know, when you do a biopic, and you're the subject, how that must be to see your life played on the screen. And some biopics are really successful, like this one, like I, Tanya, like Coal
Yes.
Miner's Daughter.
Yeah.
It has this sort of how it must be to see your life lived out on screen. And,
You
and,
know,
and
one of the things I loved about this movie,
go ahead.
I don't think it was sensationalized. In other words, they really made it about mental health. They ended it with mental health. You know, he got
Yes.
help. He got good therapy. I'm sorry. I am a clinical psychologist, have been since before there were horses, right? And I have to say, you know, and I have a great sense of humor. I love comedy, but sometimes it gets depressing. You know, the way they tear down, you know, my profession in you know the media. You know, and like it's funny, but it's not funny. You know, in some of the shows that have really denigrated getting help in psychology. You know, so in this movie, there's respect for getting help. There was a good therapist you could see really helped him, right?
Yeah. And I want to touch on this too about being an astrologer and having a chart. And I always say one of the advantages we have is we don't have to spend a lot of time rooting around. We can see it in the chart where that person, nobody comes to an astrologer or a psychologist because things are going well. There's a problem that needs to be solved. And I think astrology is so incredibly helpful in helping identify that problem quickly.
Yeah.
And
Jung did everybody's chart. Jung did everybody's chart that came to him. Carl Jung.
mm,
He always did the chart, whether they talked about it or not. He did it because it helped him. He said it helped him understand what was going on. By the way, just full disclosure, Pluto is exactly 1 degree from my natal sun right now.
how does that working out for you?
It's fabulous. I've come out as an astrologer where I was very private about the astrology because of my profession and some of the other things I did in my profession. I had to keep them separate. But at 75, I don't really give a darn anymore, and I'm just it's like the acoustic guitar. I'm just going to be me. I have to play my acoustic guitar too, wear my chambray shirt, as well as do these other things.
I struggle with this too because I'm a teacher, and I can't even use my name, my preferred name, which is Alex. I have to use my legal name, and I struggle with this too. And when I first became a teacher, I had to decide how I'm going to play this. But now, if anybody challenges me about an astrologer, and whether a teacher should be an astrologer, I have enough experience and enough education that I can defend myself. But back when I was young, I didn't have those skills. It was very difficult for me to, in fact, I'm going to say it's impossible. It was impossible for me to um, be an astrologer and a teacher. I had to be one or the other, and I had to keep them very partitioned. But it's a different world now, and I think with astrology being a little bit more, oh, I don't know if we can say respected. I'm not sure we're there yet, but we, I think there most astrologers I know are incredibly well educated, well read
Yeah,
book hoarders. They've
yeah,
gone through the skeptic thing. They are people that are able to defend themselves better. And we're getting away from the fortune telling sun sign astrology and more into like you research. Well, at least that's where I see myself. I can only I can only speak for myself. I'm not going to speak for anybody else. But anyway, um, in my book Mirror Mirror, I found the nodes were implicated and again, and also Chiron as we raised. So before I go on to the film of my choice, um, just wanted to bring in Nebraska is about the Starkweather homicides, which were in 1959, the same year that the Clutter homicides had taken place with Truman
oh,
Capote and In
oh,
Cold Blood. So that's
right.
the film of my choice. So South Node here. We got transiting Jupiter yesterday, conjunct Jeremy Allen White's uh, South Node in Cancer. And we also have the Pluto, transiting Pluto very close to his North Node too. And um, also looking at the South Node, transiting South Node conjunct Bruce Springsteen's Saturn, which we talked about extensively. But I want to look at Capote. Um, uh, Philip Seymour Hoffman played Truman Capote. Now, Capote is one of my favorite writers, up there with Walt Whitman and a few others. So this is a great movie. Philip Seymour Hoffman, talk about addiction problems. I was gutted when he died under those circumstances. But we can do the same thing with Truman Capote, looking at his chart. And look, I can't help it. I'm an algal magnet.
Oh, great. Well, I love
So
it.
so his
I love fixed stars and asteroids. I just love it.
his Imam Chali would be conjunct Algol. If we can take that 3 p.m. exactly is his birth time. I think this is a B rating chart, so maybe it might be a few minutes either way, but it's going to be Algol conjunct his Imam Chali. And uh, his North Node is conjunct his Neptune. And he had the great imagination. He was always the kid that had the greatest stories to tell. He was an unusual boy. He didn't quite ever fit in. I think his first words to his first words in any friendship was, I'm Truman Capote and I can read. When even he was a young child, so he was always had that great
That's great.
personality. And so Philip Seymour Hoffman, let's look at how he stepped into this role. Now, we do have his AA chart, 2:39 a.m., 23rd of July, 1967, just a little bit younger than me. And I am just looking at that Pluto conjunct Truman Capote's uh, um, Mercury in Virgo. Talk about drawing out, the meaning or finding. What struck me about Philip Seymour Hoffman playing Truman Capote is the way he spoke.
Yeah.
He could imitate him. It was uncanny, and I love this about biopics in that you forget that the actor really isn't the real life person,
Yeah.
and Philip Seymour Hoffman got this perfectly.
Yeah.
He was wonderful. Um, we have Neptune, Hoffman's Neptune, not too far off of Truman Capote's midheaven, but look at that midheaven. His
Wow.
midheaven on the Mars, the
Bringing out the
moon.
secrets. Bringing
Yes,
out the secrets.
absolutely. His moon on the south node. Excuse me, on the south node.
Wow.
I keep saying that the nodes. I was never a fan of the nodes. I used to think, oh, mathematical point doesn't matter until I started doing biopics, and now I see the nodes everywhere, connecting and making sense. Now, Capote is in Mirror Mirror Part 1. I'm currently working on Volume 2, which will, of course, feature the Bruce Springsteen movie. But I'm a little bit of a data girl. I'm going to have to sort all this out and look at the percentage, looking at the stats and things like that. But I just can't take my eyes off of Philip Seymour Hoffman's Imam Chali conjunct the North Node.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Isn't that where Hillary Clinton's moon of Scorpio is too? Isn't it hugging the EMC
do
or
we
close?
have her time of birth? I thought that was a little bit controversial.
Oh, that is a little controversial.
I'm not sure, but you know, we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater, I always say. So we have to, there might be some other connection there. But Philip Seymour Hoffman, and you look at the other thing I saw was we got his Pluto conjunct Truman Capote's Mercury, but we got it the other way around too. We have Philip Seymour Hoffman's Mercury conjunct Truman Capote's Pluto. Now, what are the odds of that
Really?
happening?
Wow.
other way around, you know.
Yeah.
I think it's absolutely remarkable. And I every time I do one of these interviews, I'm always coming away with thinking, God damn, you know, isn't astrology a great subject?
Yeah.
And you know, isn't it
Yeah.
something that we could bring all this together?
It's
And
wonderful.
looking at the Capote, the release of the film, um, got to be careful of the angles because I'm using a noon chart on here. But you know, I just look at this and I just think Neptune, transiting Neptune, so close to that moon south node conjunction, only within 5 degrees. That's been, you know, that's not even, I'm not, 5 degrees is okay. 8 degrees or 9 degrees is pushing it, but 5 degrees is a pretty good call. And look at the sun conjunct Philip Seymour Hoffman's um, Venus in Virgo. You know, what a great film this was. And if I'm not mistaken, if memory serves, Philip Seymour Hoffman got an Oscar nomination. I'm not sure if he got the award that year, but you know, I think he got a nomination. He got some awards for his portrayal, and absolutely bloody brilliant film. And anyway, so I, Catherine, I thank you so much for joining
Yeah.
me. You
Thank
know,
you.
you have been a very insightful guest, and I love the what you brought to this. Thank you for being persistent, because we've been talking about this since August,
Yeah.
and you didn't let me forget, and then you want to talk about Bruce Springsteen, and I thank you for holding me accountable, not letting me forget, because I know so many people want to be on this podcast that it's been a little bit difficult to keep track of stuff. Coming up, I have Christina Rodenbeck,
Nice.
and I got a few other people that want to be on the show. And in the past, I've had Margaret Gray. Um, I've had my good friend Steve Judd. Lots coming up for me personally. Steve Judd and I and Rick Levine are going to be making an appearance here in central London. We bring humor and good storytelling to the stage. And, you know, we're very much looking forward to meeting everybody. We love to meet our viewers and to talk to people. And leave your comments, please, please. Tell me what film you'd like to hear about. There are so many going on. Who's your favorite actor? What kind of astrology do you have in common with your favorite actor? I think this is a really important question. When I look at Philip Seymour Hoffman, um, he is only born a little bit after the year after I was born, and what I see in his chart is, you know, I look at that Jupiter in Leo, bang on my moon in Leo. You know, there are great connections to our favorite actors. So please leave your comments down below. Please subscribe to the channel. I'm nearly at the 500 mark. I mean, this is years
Nice.
of not even trying, and suddenly I got a whole lot of subscribers. But I need to get to 500 so I can do special things with my channel. And again, thank you so much, Dr. Catherine, for joining me.
Thank you. It's a wonderful show.
Thank you.
Yeah. And may I announce something too?
Yes, sure, please.
In December, I'll be presenting my Rewilding Saturn presentation, which has to do with the first, second, and third Saturn returns and my research on that, both for individuals and in mundane applications. And I also take a very different look in the mythology of Saturn. It's pre-Hellenistic, Mesopotamian, very different character. Mesopotamian look at Saturn with someone else. And I'll be presenting that for NCGR Boston. So take a look at their NCGR website, Boston, the Boston chapter for December. I'll be presenting again for them. And thank you so much, Boston, my home chapter, for inviting me to do that.
You must know David. Um,
I do, David, and I know Lisa.
you know, Dave and I have sound connections from Portugal. David Perloff, we're talking about. We've been,
Yes, the
I think it's
wonderful
our
group in Portugal.
our fourth time together in Portugal. I think our favorite time was when we were in the Azores together. David and I went off a little walk together and along the seaside. We went whale watching, and we had a great time. Good people at NCGR Boston. I'm going to give a shout out to Dorothy Oja as well.
Great. Wonderful. Thank you. What a delight this was.
Thank you.
What fun.
And so wherever you are, whatever you're doing, have a good one. Tune in. Thank you for joining Astrology in Real Life and to the stars.
Nice.
Thank you.
May I say to you, Yehete?
Say it again.
Yehete?
Thank you. Okay.
And I'm part Micmac.
Oh, are you?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Chimigwech.
Canada, Maritimes, Newfoundland. Are you Ojibwe?
Ojibwe, full blood. Oh, well, my
Yeah, I
mother's full
thought so.
blood. I'm half. My father's from Eastern European descendant, but my mom's full blood Ojibwe, hence the
Are
line.
you are you are you the tribal roles?
Yes, I'm a band member.
I'm not, so I don't usually talk about it in public because I'm not on the tribal roles, but I have Micmac background by blood and Choctaw by adoption. So
Nice. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
All right. So I'm going to get this sorted out hopefully tonight or tomorrow and get it posted as soon as I can. You got the uh publicity stuff I sent to you. So I'll get that link to you as soon as I can. And
Okay.
thank you again.
Would you like to do a panel for the Oscars at some point?
Oh, you did ask me about that. I
Ah,
can
I'd
do
be
now.
interested.
Now I think I told you I'm not a fan of Rav Shikavi
Not
Raguda.
with him, not with him.
Yeah. But I
Just
can do. I have done it before with evolutionary astrologers. I've done something
okay.
with them. But I keep well away from Ra and his James Bond
Yeah,
rubbish.
I
I
got
don't.
that message. So this has nothing to do with him. I'm just thinking it'd be kind of fun. And actually, with the stuff I've done with Jeremy and you, we could, I could definitely look at the Saturn, do something on the Saturn, in his chart. And because I'm pretty sure he's got to be, in the running, but just saying, it might be fun.
Oh, yeah. When are those nominations? Hmm.
I have to look that up, but I'd love to participate and talk about Saturn and his chart and stuff, and then you talk about whatever, but I just think it'd be fun. Maybe one of the organizations would like to sponsor us, OPA or NCGR or ESA or something, or I don't know. Just put it
Uh,
out there.
okay, let's we can fly it by EA Astrology. They've hosted me before for Oscars.
Love to.
Okay,
Uh, you-
let's
I
get
don't really
contact.
know them. I don't know them personally that well, so, and I guess you do, so maybe,
Okay,
um, yeah, yeah.
we
So,
can
what's your birthday?
20th of July, 1966.
Okay. January 23rd, 1950.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Oh, yep, half a Saturn cycle ahead of me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much. This is delightful.
Thank you. Let's make
And I
sure we
hope you
share
don't
it.
mind. I wanted to introduce myself more organically, I just to
No, I
insert it.
wanted you to do it too. I kind of don't like dumping
Good.
all this information on people, and I'd rather that
Yeah.
you kind of reveal yourself slowly and
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. It's fun.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Fabulous.
All right, my
Okay.
dear. I'll
Take
see you.
care.
You
Bye-bye.
too. Bye-bye.
Yeah.